Okay, I'm going to commence, and you're all very welcome. God, I hope that's not Dr. Martin Mansergh running away anywhere. No, he's back again.
We need him.
I suppose you're all very welcome. Very unusual circumstances on a beautiful Easter Sunday, and it is wonderful through means of technology that we're able to have this commemoration on behalf of Ógra Fianna Fáil, Tipperary Ógra Fianna Fáil. Tipperary Ógra Fianna Fáil have been having a commemoration for several years now, and in Templemore mainly at the famous town hall that was actually fitting that it was burned down in 1921 and rebuilt by the people by British forces and rebuilt by the people of Templemore who just didn't want to see their fabulous market town hall burned to the ground. So a fabulous setting every year, and even last year with the advent of COVID-19, Tim Maher still continued on the tradition of Fianna Fáil and laid the wreaths in outside the town hall. And I suppose Tim doesn't take any great recognition for doing that, because what he always says to me is he's doing what Fianna Fáil have always done, and they've always commemorated 1916 and the Troubles over the past 100 years, and feels very proud to continue it on. So that's why we're here this evening. And the format of the evening basically is that we're going to have videos of the various laying of wreaths, and we're going to have some poems, and we're going to have our oration by our esteemed guest, Dr. Martin Mansergh. We'll introduce Martin when the time has come. And then we're going to have a message from our TD, Jackie Cahill, and also for our MEP, Billy Kelleher. And we're going to have a song later on, and then we're going to wrap up with the national anthem. All in all, approximately an hour, we estimate. And I'm going to kick off by introducing Ryan O'Mara to you. Ryan O'Mara is the current chairperson of Ógra Fianna Fáil in Tipperary. He has been in that role for the past year and a half. He's also on the national executive, and Ryan is the hope of the future of Fianna Fáil. He's a very active young man, has a huge interest in the history of Fianna Fáil and in the continuation of the traditions of Fianna Fáil, and also in the rebuilding of the party. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Ryan and have a short discussion with him on the first of our videos, which is upcoming.
Hi, John.
PJ, is Ryan shared on the screen with me, or can that be done?
Possibly just when I speak, I'd say, is it?
Okay.
I can show you when you speak, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks very much for that kind introduction anyway, John. That's very good of you.
Yeah, Ryan. Thank you very much. And Ryan, just maybe you might have a short discussion on what attracts a young man like you, a young, vibrant young man who's, could do lots of other things. What attracts you to Fianna Fáil, and what do you see in this commemoration or the importance of it?
I guess what attracts me first, well, number one, I'll start with our proud Republican history, because obviously that's the main point of this commemoration every year, is just to remember our Republican side and to commemorate those who fought for our freedom. And I think Fianna Fáil's history in our country, to that extent, is really unparalleled in a lot of ways. Why I joined Fianna Fáil is more so, of course, it's to do with our history, but it's also to do with our present and our future in terms of what I believe this party can offer our country yet again. And I believe that the very strong centrist position that we must hold in this country as our politics is continually polarized is going to be very important. And for me, that is one main reason why I think Fianna Fáil was the right choice for me. I also come from a working class Republican background, and I'm very proud of that. And to me, Fianna Fáil always represented that, and I think will into the future for a long time to come. But an important aspect of that is obviously attracting young people to this party. Why I believe commemorations such as this are important, I think, John, I probably have three different reasons for that. Number one is just generally why commemorations are important. Number two is why they're important that young people are involved. And then number three, why it's important that Fianna Fáil would host commemorations such as this. So generally, I think commemorations are important to remember the likes of Cloughjordan's Thomas MacDonagh, who's obviously very important when it comes to 1916, or Dan Breen, or even James Devaney. We'll touch on many others here this evening as well. The list goes on, and they deserve to live long in our memories, I believe, both for the risks that they took as Republicans, and also on too many occasions the sacrifices made. Their memories and their stories deserve to live long in our minds, and that's why I believe commemorations are important generally. In terms of why I think young people need to be involved in them, I think as a young person I have a duty and an obligation to continue the traditions and commemorations that we're used to, both so that they're done respectfully but also honestly. I don't think that commemorations like this should ever be done in any way to glorify violence or to wrap ourselves in a tricolour, but rather just to remember the sacrifices that were made and why they were made and what brought people to make those take those massive risks. Many young people are drawn to the Republican cause and care passionately about it, and at this stage that's a generation's old phenomenon or tradition. And I think that we need to continue that, but we need to continue it honestly and respectfully. And I think young people have a very important role to play in honouring that history. And finally,
Ryan, sorry, yeah.
Go on.
Finally,
yeah,
yeah,
no. Yeah, my last point then, I suppose, is Fianna Fáil's role in honouring and commemorating. We're a very proud Republican party. We have a long history, and I know that's something that I think Deputy Cahill in particular will touch on this evening as well. There is no denying the extremely strong links we have both to the 1916 Rising through the likes of Eamon de Valera, Countess Markovich, and other surviving leaders of the Rising that later joined our party, and also the War of Independence, and we need look no further than the likes of Dan Breen for that. While we as a party, I believe, we will never claim Irish republicanism as our own, while others might. We have a very proud 95-year history at this stage that is steeped in republicanism, and I believe that it's important to commemorate and recognise that for many, many years to come. Obviously, we're in the decade of centenaries at the moment. We have 1916 Rising, we have right up to the end of the Civil War, really, and I think this year is a good time in 2021 to continue those commemorations and for the youth of our party to take a central role.
Okay, right. I'm going to hold you on that note. And
yeah,
I suppose the importance of the video that Gerard Fogarty is about to play for us right now is it's the Legion of the Rearguard song with the accompanied by photographs. The importance is that it demonstrates the history of Fianna Fáil, and if you go right back over the 100 years, we've been there. We've been at the commemorations and we have celebrated that era for a long, long time. So I'm going to ask Gerard now to play the video first. Thank you, Gerard.
Up the Republic, they raise their battle cry. Pearson McDermott will play for you on high. Eager and ready, for love of you they die. Proud march to the soldiers of the rear guard, Legion of the rear guard, and swing Ireland's corn. Hark the martial trumpets herald, from Cork to Donegal. Well, Tone and Devil guide you, though your task be hard. Of the Legion of the Rear Guard, glorious the morning through flame and shot and shell. Now rally Ireland, your sons who love you well. Pledge they'll defend you, though death or prison cell. Wait for the soldiers of the Rear Guard, Legion of the Rear Guard, and string Ireland's call. Trumpets heard from Cork to Donegal. One Tone and Devil guide you, though your task be hard. Devil let lead you, soldiers of the Legion of the Rear Guard. Crimson the roadside, the prison wall, the cave. Proof of their valor, go sleep in peace ye brave. Comrade, tread lightly, you're near a hero's grave. Proud die the soldiers of the rear guard, Legion of the rear guard, and swing Ireland's fall. Hark their martial trumpeters, from Cork to Donegal. Wolfone and David guide you, though your task be hard. Devil ever lead you, soldiers of the Legion of the rear guard.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ger, for that. And we're going to continue on because I'm conscious of time and try and keep the program moving. The next item is the reading of the proclamation. The proclamation is going to be read again on video by Conor Burke, who is the chairperson of North Tipperary Ógra. We're very fortunate that we have a fine number of people in Ógra, and it has developed a lot over the years. So we've chairs north, south, and chairs that's combined. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask Ger to play a very well read reading of the proclamation by Conor Burke.
Poblacht na Érann, the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic to the people of Ireland. Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and trained her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland, and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and of its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to and hereby claims the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and all of its parts. Cherishing all the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the Provisional Government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity, or rapine. In this supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called. Signed, on behalf of the Provisional Government, Thomas J. Clarke, Sean McDermott, Padraig H. Pearse, James Connolly, Thomas MacDonagh, Eamon Ceannt and Joseph Plunkett.
Well done, Conor, and thank you very much. I'm going to ask Chair Fogarty to continue again, and our next video is of laying wreaths. The wreaths have been laid throughout various parts of the county, and the names of the people laying the wreaths will be shared on your screen in memory of people who have contributed to the Republican movement over many, many years. So, Chair, I'll ask you now to play that video. Thank you.
When boyhood's fire was in my blood, I read of ancient freemen of Greece and Rome who bravely stood, 300 men and 3 men. And then I prayed I yet might see our fetters rent in twain, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland long a province be, a nation once again. And from that time through wildest woe, that hope has shone a far light, nor could love's brightest summer glow outshine that solemn starlight. It seemed to watch above my head through foreign field and fane, its angel voice sang round my bed, a nation once again, a nation once again, a nation once again, and Ireland.
Thank you, Chair. Next, we're going to have a poem, and the poem is both written and going to be read by Marion Curtin. Marion also has a long tradition of participating in our remembrance and our commemorations. And Marion hails from Templetoe, close to the town of Templemore. So, Chair, I'll ask you now to play our first poem by Marion Curtin.
And it's called Island Day. As I lay my head on my pillow, with a big eider down at my feet, lying there cozy and warm, hoping to sleep until morn. And as I lay there in slumber, a dream appeared in my head. I was somewhere in Dublin. I was outside Kilmainham jail instead. I turned to the person beside me. He had a newspaper in his hand. I glanced at the date on the paper. It was dated May the 12th, 1916. The headline on the paper gave the names of the men executed for Ireland. The names were as followed: P.H. Pearse, Thomas MacDonagh, Thomas J. Clark, May the 3rd, 1916. Willie Pearse, Joseph Plunkett, Edward Daly and Michael Hanrahan, May the 4th, 1916. John McBride, May the 5th, 1916. Cornelius Corbett and Eamon Ceannt, Michael Mallon and Shaw Euston, May the 8th, 1916. Thomas Kent, May the 9th, 1916. James Connolly and Sean McDermott, May the 12th, 1916. Is the beauty in dying, or is it the victory in death? Then I saw a boy on the corner, reading a sheet in his hand, and the first 2 lines of his glancing were familiar in my mind. It read, Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of her dead generations. In my unconscious mind, it was the words of our proclamation. I awoke and then I thought, I was not born, I did not live back in 1916, but those brave women and men gave me my freedom of speech, my right to say what I want for my island today.
Thank you very much, Marion Curtin, once again. And I suppose it gives me great privilege now to head to the highlight of our evening, and that's the introduction of Dr. Martin Mansergh. I take particular pleasure in introducing Martin because I have been a great admirer of Martin for many, many years, like many others in the county of Tipperary and throughout the country, and several other countries for that matter. Martin was a TD in Tipperary South from 2007 to 2011. And during that period, he was Minister of State at the Department of Finance and at the Department of Arts. Martin was a Senator for the Agricultural panel between 2002 and 2007. He worked in the Department of Foreign Affairs during the 1970s. And he was an advisor to 3 Taoiseach prior to the signing of the Good Friday Agreement. And as Charlie Oy said himself once, he plucked him out of the department in 1980 and asked him to work at the Department of the Taoiseach. Probably was a little more than asking, I'd imagine, knowing that the great and insistent man that Charlie Oy was. Just to give you an idea of how highly he was regarded at the time, the Irish Times in 1998 stated after the signing of the agreement that Dr. Martin Mansergh is personally steeped in the Anglo-Irish question and has a deep understanding and personal fear for the Irish Republican tradition. This understanding is said to have been vital in the securing of the IRA ceasefire. And I think nobody would argue with that statement. Martin read politics, philosophy, and economics at Oxford. So without any further ado, it gives me huge pleasure and an honor to welcome Dr. Martin Mansergh for his oration. Thank you.
Cahillac, Deputy, Senator, Councillors, fellow party members and friends. I'd like to begin by thanking all members of Tipperary, Ógra, Fianna, Fáil, Dan Breen, Common, and indeed everyone else participating. A happy Easter. I was thinking back, listening to soldiers of the Legion of the Rearguard, you know, how perfectly Noel Davin, for a long time deputy in this constituency, how perfectly he rendered that on many festive occasions. All of us at every stage of life are looking forward, we hope soon, to greater freedom in our personal and family lives, our occupations, including study for exams at school and college, and to be able to participate again in community activities of all types, whether related to sports, church participation, and indeed the general resumption of social life. We all need to stay safe for another little while so that when the times come, we will be there to carry on in full our several tasks and responsibilities. There are times in every country's history where providing good leadership in a crisis, aiming above all at damage limitation, is the overriding political priority. We owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our frontline medical workers, other essential workers, including teachers and Gardaí, and indeed everyone who is helping to keep life going as best they can in present circumstances. And amidst all this, there are lives cut short of some that we know, whom we mourn. It is a great honour to be asked to address the annual Tipperary Fianna Fáil commemoration at Easter, the most important day of the Republican calendar. I'm very sorry that we no longer have with us my neighbour at Greenan, Eamon Power, whose hard work, help and good advice were always invaluable. The party has also lost a valued member in Tom Lowry in Drumban. I would like to pay tribute to the hard work of our Deputy and Chairman of the Oireachtas Agriculture Committee, Jackie Cahill, at a time when multiple challenges ahead make expert knowledge and experience of the industry such a necessary and vital asset in the political sphere. Our local councillors also do an excellent job for us at a time when the potential contribution of the country beyond the cities needs to be more fully utilised, and I'm sure will be. The best case for the Easter Rising, made at the time by a young member of Cumann Moira Regan from County Wexford, was that it gave us a national life, which we did not previously have. This is what she told Joyce Kilmer, a journalist of the New York Times, in the summer of 1916. As the historian Elaine Callanan of Carlow College, St. Patrick's, has written in a book published last year, in political terms, the Easter Rising was a consummate success. At huge personal sacrifice, the leaders of the Rising, who were all executed when it failed militarily, put Irish independence on the map at a time when it was foreseeable in the midst of the First World War that much of the map of Europe was going to be completely redrawn. Pearse, before he died, hoped enough had been done. It had. As Elaine Callanan has written, and I quote, "It cannot be overstated that the connection with the Rising was a mainstay of Sinn Féin election propaganda throughout 1917 and 1918. And that, of course, is why the Rising was important in Tipperary as elsewhere, even if volunteers in Tipperary had little opportunity to take part. However, Thomas MacDonagh of Cloughjordan was one of the signatories of the proclamation. And the man who subsequently became OC of the 3rd Tipperary Brigade IRA, Seamus Robinson, fought in various locations in O'Connell Street throughout Easter week. The leaders of the Rising represented a broad political spectrum of opinion that included the leader of the Labour movement, James Connolly, whose right-hand person, Constance Markovich, was later a founding member of Fianna Fáil shortly before she died. It is striking how 100 years on, Ireland's place among the nations today resembles the strategic vision of the 1916 leaders, partly informed by Roger Casement with his knowledge of Europe. Obviously, I'm not talking about any military configuration, but about the political and economic one. Brexit has highlighted the importance of the Irish-American community once again, of which President Joe Biden has acknowledged himself a member, as well as of gallant allies in Europe. In the past, promises and undertakings made to Ireland by Britain, the Treaty of Limerick, the promise of Catholic emancipation at the time the Act of Union, the Boundary Commission, could be discarded in the knowledge that Ireland was much weaker and could do little about it, in the short term anyway. Today, Ireland has the backing of America and of Europe in seeing that Britain's international engagements as they affect Ireland and the Good Friday Agreement and the protocol are honoured. The Emmett brothers, grandsons of a Tipperary doctor, Dr. Christopher Emmett, buried in St. Mary's Churchyard, both had pertinent things to say about Ireland's situation in the wider world. The elder brother, Thomas Addis Emmett, told a secret parliamentary committee in Dublin in 1798, I quote, "America is the best market in the world, and Ireland the best situated country in Europe to trade with that market." He went on to become Attorney General of New York and was a champion of civil and religious rights for Irish immigrants of all backgrounds in the early 19th century. I have often felt that Robert Emmett's definition of Ireland's independence as taking its place among the nations is more apposite than abstract conceptions of sovereignty. While Lloyd George and Churchill were determined to keep Ireland within the bounds of the British Empire, rebranded as Commonwealth, and without full sovereign independence, those chains were broken, albeit not all at once. While the decade of centenaries will close in September 2023 with the centenary of the Irish Free State's admission to the League of Nations, Ireland today is a member of the United Nations, in which it has been elected to a 2-year term on the Security Council, and a member of the European Union, where our Minister for Finance, Paschal Donohoe, has been elected chair of an inner sanctum, the Eurozone Finance Ministers. I have come to the view that Ireland substantially achieved its independence at a unique moment in history. In accordance with the principle of national self-determination embraced by the United States President Woodrow Wilson, specifically to vindicate the rights of small nations, even if he did not have Ireland in mind. Even so, this was not granted without struggle. Sometimes people moralize about the lack of a mandate for the 1916 Rising or the War of Independence. There is much less comment about Britain willfully ignoring a democratic mandate for home rule stretching back 40 years or more. but repeatedly frustrated, or equally ignoring the mandate for independence in the 1918 general election, irrespective of the area in which it might operated. The independence struggle involved a twin-track approach, setting up a counter-state and fighting a guerrilla campaign. Neither a purely military nor a purely political strategy would have worked. The objective was well defined decades previously by one-time MP for Tipperary, Jeremiah O'Donovan Rossa, elected only to be disqualified in 1869, when he said that the Irish, and I quote, needed to show England that she is losing more than she is gaining by holding us. It will be remembered that Pearse's oration at his graveside in 1915 marked the prelude to the Rising. Tipperary played a leading and honourable role throughout the whole struggle for independence, as indeed it had done in the century preceding it, 1848, 1867, and so on. The main phase of the Irish Revolution began at Solohead Beg on 21st of January 1919. As my father, the historian Nicholas Mansergh, wrote, history was forged in sudden death on a Tipperary by-road as surely as ever it was in meetings at Downing Street, or for that matter at the Mansion House in Dublin, where the Dáil met coincidentally but fortuitously for the first time that same day. In April 1923, the Civil War effectively came to an end when Liam Lynch was shot on the slopes of the Knockbeal Downs. In the aftermath, Republicans faced a choice: an uncertain road of continued revolutionary militancy without popular support, or a parliamentary road, even if starting out as a slightly constitutional party. There is an enormous amount of material online from the Bureau of Military History, as well as a wealth of new publications covering new ground as well as old, with which to review one of the most formative decades in our history. The spirit in which it is being conducted is reflective as well as celebratory, extending empathy without having to abandon loyalties, and recognizing that, as in all revolutions, there were costs, both human and economic, as well as gains. Tipperary is fortunate in having so many excellent historians to help tell and understand and broaden the story. My belief is that we can look back with a considerable sense of achievement. As a country that established itself in very difficult conditions, that has managed successfully to navigate past many dangerous rocks, and that has vindicated handsomely its independence and its democracy. Of course, as is the case with nearly every other country, there have been serious shortcomings and disappointments. Our party has much to be proud of in the contribution that it has made. We, to all intents and purposes, restored Republican status and gave the country a Republican constitution, involving not just representative democracy, but regular consultation of the people by way of referendum. Industrial development began with protection. We built directly much public housing. We developed a health service and extended welfare provision. And by negotiating the return of the ports and by political courage and skillful diplomacy, Ireland secured its neutrality in World War II and succeeded in avoiding invasion. Post-war in the 1950s, we recognized a different economic policy was required. Self-sufficiency would not provide the living conditions increasingly expected. Fianna Fáil led the country into the EEC, which provided an outlet for our agricultural production, but also enabled us to become an industrial production and service base for a large European market. While Britain's European engagement was rejected mainly by the English people after 40 years, we have made a success of ours. In a European context, we became a partner of Britain and no longer an economic satellite. Today, we are part of a larger union that leaves us largely free to manage our own affairs within a framework that provides political and economic security, but within which, like every other country, we also have to fight our corner. We started out as member with living standards not much higher than 60% of the EU average, while today we can hold our own with any other European country. Employment has been doubled since 1987, when the economy really took off, leaving aside the temporary drop caused by COVID. Dublin is an important international financial services centre. Higher education, once something only a small elite could afford, is now accessed by 50% of the population. One of the biggest contributions Fianna Fáil made was its role in developing the peace process and helping to bring an end to the conflict in Northern Ireland that cost over 3,500 lives. Father Alex Reid from Nina, who worked in the Redemptorist Monastery in Belfast throughout the Troubles, played a key role in a miracle which may in time win added recognition from the Church. However, as we can see today, as a recent historian, Alan Parkinson, sympathetic to Northern Ireland, has written in the conclusion to his recent book, A Difficult Birth, The Early Years of Northern Ireland, 1920 to 25, and I quote, Northern Ireland, and these are the last words in his book, Northern Ireland on the eve of its centenary is arguably as divided today as it was back at its conception. Time will tell whether its difficult birth will ultimately result in a healthier future or its eventual painful demise. Undoubtedly, Brexit has made the constitutional issue a live one again, but it is one that needs to be handled carefully. In this, I support the approach of Taoiseach Micheál Martin. Northern Ireland cannot simply be steamrolled into a united Ireland. A border poll should only be held when it is likely to pass. The immediate priority, in my view, is to hold on to the gains made in the Good Friday Agreement. Northern Ireland has been given the opportunity by the EU to have both continued access to the British market at the same time as remaining part of the European single market and customs union, and of course within that, the single island economy. It is hard to see how attacking the police, whether on the streets or politically, advances anything. All police forces have to be careful and to a degree pragmatic in handling large events or even smaller demonstrations. A reformed police service like the PSNI is designed not to be the pliant instrument in the service of partisan politics that its predecessor was often accused of being. Tipperary has shown in the last few months what it can do, winning the Munster football final for the first time in more than 3/4 of a century, the stunning and trailblazing performance as a jockey of Rachel Blackmore, and the huge success of the Collinson brothers. I am sure many members of Ógra will do much in the future to develop the role and contribution of the Premier County to the progress and welfare of all of Ireland and in some cases beyond, and that some will go on to play a role in representative politics in Fianna Fáil. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mansergh. Taking us, trace the development of our state from this period of revolution to the present day, related our role in history to present political and our economic position. And he took account of the volatile situation associated with Brexit. And I loved his finish mentioning Rachel Blackmore and the Collison brothers and others. Martin, thank you very much for an outstanding oration. I'm conscious of time, and I'm going to ask Ger Fogarty to play our next video, which is a poem by Tom Stamp.
I have met them at close of day, coming with vivid faces, from counter or desk among grey 18th century houses. I have passed with a nod of the head, or polite meaningless words, or I have lingered a while and said polite meaningless words, and thought before I had done of a mocking tale or gibe, to please a companion around the fire of the club, being certain that they and I but lived where motley is worn. All changed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. That woman's days were spent in ignorant goodwill, her nights in argument until her voice grew shrill. What voice more sweet than hers when, young and beautiful, she rode the harriers? This man kept a school and rode our winged horse. This other, his helper and friend, was coming into his force. He might have won fame at the end. So sensitive his nature seemed, so daring and sweet his thought. This other man I had dreamed, a drunken, vainglorious lout. He had done the most bitter wrong to some who were near my heart, yet I number him in the song. He too has resigned his part in the casual comedy. He too has been changed in his turn, transformed utterly. A terrible beauty is born. Hearts with one purpose alone, through summer and winter, seem enchanted to a stone to trouble the living stream. The horse that comes from the road, the rider, the birds that range from cloud to tumbling cloud, minute by minute they change, the shadow of cloud on the stream. Changes minute by minute. A horse hoof slides on the brim, and a horse splashes within it. The long-legged moor-hens dive, and hens to moorcocks call. Minute by minute they live, the stones in the midst of it all. Too long a sacrifice can make a stone of the heart. Oh, when may it suffice? That is heaven's part. Our part, to murmur name upon name, as a mother names her child when sleep has at last come on limbs that have won well. What is it but nightfall? No, no, not night, but death. Was it needless death after all? For England may keep faith for all that is done and said. We know their dream enough to know they dreamed and are dead. What if excess of love bewildered them till they died? I write it out in a verse, MacDonagh and MacBride, and Conwy and Pearse, now and in time to be. When evergreen is worn or changed utterly, a terrible beauty is born.
Fabulous from Tom Stamp. Tom is has been an active member and supporter of Ógra Fianna Fáil for many years and a participant over several years in the 1916 commemoration. So thanks again to Tom for that lovely poem by Yeats. Our next video I'm going to ask Ger is another video of Reith Lane. It's our second video of Lane and Reith, and watch out for the screen for the names of the participants. Okay, Ger, when you're ready.
I was born on a Dublin street where the Lyle drums did beat. The loving English feet they walked all over us. And every single night when me da would come home tight, he'd invite the neighbours out with this chorus. Come on, shibboleth and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra. Come, let us hear you tell how you slandered great Parnell when you taught them well and truly persecuted. What are the sneers and jeers that you loudly let us hear when our leaders of 16 were executed? Shibboleth and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra. Come tell us how you slew them all Arabs 2 by 2. Like the Zulus they had spears, a bow and arrows. How bravely you faced one with your 16-pounder gun, and you frightened them damn natives to the marrow. Come out, shibboleth and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Show your wife how you won medals down in Flanders. Tell her how the IRA made you run like hell away from the green and lovely lanes of Killishandra.
Thanks, Ger. I'm going to continue on with the evening and I'm going to introduce our local TD, Jackie Cal, who has a message also. Thanks to Jackie. Hello.
Hello, John, can you hear me?
Yes, Jackie, maybe PJ might share you on the screen. Okay, here we are. Thank you, PJ.
Okay, thanks, John. First of all, I would like to start by thanking Tipperary Ógra Fianna Fáil for inviting me to address the Commemoration here this evening. I'm delighted to see that times are strange at the moment, and we spent the second Easter lockdown. Our Ógra members here in Tipperary have not allowed COVID-19 to prevent us from commemorating our Irish patriots who risked and lost their lives while fighting for our independence. Ye are the future of our party. We are depending on ye, and we really appreciate the work that you are doing. We've seen here today the central role that the founding and lifelong Fianna Fáil members played in our nation's battle for sovereignty. It's important that we as a party and as a county remember the central role that our people played in driving towards our shared ambition of independence. Every parish in our county has its own tales to tell of the fight for independence. The brave men and women who risked their lives so that we could be free, and the central role that countless Fianna Fáil people played in that very important phase in our history. It's essential that we as an organisation of proud Republicans uphold these traditions and ensure that generations after us have a full and honest account of our nation's fight for freedom. As I said, Tipperary is steeped in Republican history, as is Fianna Fáil, and it is vital that the younger members of our party do not let that be forgotten. In the face of certain groups trying to claim a history that has not theirs to claim, it's essential that those of us who know and care for our history stand up and remind others that Republican does not belong to any one party or organisation. It belongs to the Irish people. It's also important to remember that the vast majority of the surviving leaders of the 1916 Rising later went on to join Fianna Fáil when our party was founded in 1926. Eamon de Valera went on to lead his party for decades, and it was Countess Markovich who chaired the first ever meeting of the Fianna Fáil party. Here in Tipperary, we need look no further than Dan Breen, the IRA leader who served as a Fianna Fáil TD for the Tipperary and Tipperary Sound constituencies over many years. Look up the local history books and you will find the surnames of great Republicans who led from the front during our nation's long battle for freedom. And it is these same names that have led, shaped and driven the national movement that is Fianna Fáil forward for the last 95 years. And nowhere during that time did we disappear or give up on working towards our ultimate ambition, which is a 32-county republic, and Ireland for all. As I said earlier, Irish republicanism does not belong to any one brand, any one party, or any one organisation. It belongs to the people of Ireland. But in all of that, we can be very proud as Fianna Fáil Republican Party, that our roots and our history and our traditions are firmly rooted in our nation's fight for independence, and no rewriting of history will ever change that. The onus is on us as Republicans with a proud tradition that we can stand over to ensure that our patriots are always remembered with respect and dignity, not for political gain. Others might try to do that, but that is not the way that history should be remembered. I believe that is exactly what Ógra Fianna Fáil has achieved here today with this commemoration, and I thank them for that. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Jackie. And I suppose we all appreciate the work that Jackie puts in and the effort that he has, that he's a huge task on hand representing Fianna Fáil in a county as large as the one we have. And I know that not a single hour does he leave in any day that he's not constantly working, and he doesn't underestimate the challenge of rebuilding the party. And I suppose sometimes we can give out and we can say we haven't seen him in a while, but we do appreciate the work you're doing, Jackie, and we hope you continue it. Our next item is going to be a second poem read by Marion Curtin. Okay, Ger.
I stopped and bowed my head and remembered. Oh, so many years ago now. Their stories being told from dusty books off a shelf in a library and by family members and historians of shootings, killings and profound loss. Their fight for Irish freedom, 1916, started a journey of change for our island of Ireland. Look what we have today. As our country is in lockdown, well over a year now since COVID-19 arrived into our world, staying safe is our modern fight for freedom. In this year of the pandemic 2021, lay a flower on a grave of a brave child, woman, man and loved one, and bow your head in respect for their sacrifice. As I look out over the green fields of our beautiful island and see the tricolour of green, white and gold flying free on this Easter morning, I remember my loss and the loss of all loved ones for so many people in all conflicts throughout our world. In this moment of now, let us remember as a proud people to show kindness, respect and understanding to all people who call the island of Ireland their home. Thank you very much everybody and have a lovely Easter Sunday.
Thank you very much, Marion, and for your message is always meaningful. Our next short video is a message from our MEP for Ireland South, Fianna Fáil MEP, Billy Kelleher. Thanks, Chair.
A cóide go léir, míle buchas as ocht an cuire páirte glachas an cuimhne conseo. Is mór an nóir dom mar fér se hórpach, mar déan látach agus mar public tánach. 105 years ago, a courageous band of Irish patriots asserted Irish freedom once again, in arms in the face of the world. They stood against the might of the world's largest empire, knowing full well that they would realistically fail in the short term.
The Irish Republic!
Against the might of the world's largest empire, knowing full well that they would realistically fail in the short term. However, I firmly believe that they knew that the cause of Irish freedom had to be reignited in the hearts and the minds of Muintir na hÉireann before the yoke of English rule could ever be removed from the neck of Ireland. Unlike most revolutionary struggles in the late 19th and early 20th century, the struggle for Irish independence was, in general, internationalist in its outlook. The leaders of 1916 sought not to claim Irish freedom and hide away from the world, but to establish an internationalist, open and outward-looking Irish state that would take its place among the free nations of the world. Fundamentally, our War of Independence was about breaking the political link with the United Kingdom. While this was achieved for 26 counties, it has yet to be delivered for the full island. Of course, what doesn't get enough examination is how the new Irish state remained economically tied to the United Kingdom for its first 50 to 60 years. We have to remember that even in 1960, 38 years after independence, 75% of Irish exports still went to the United Kingdom, with 60% of all those exports being agricultural produce. To my mind, economic independence is just as important, but may not be as obvious to the commemoration as political independence. There are two key events that I believe must be commemorated in order to fully understand how the Irish state cemented its political independence through increasing its economic freedom. The first and most obvious one is Ireland's entry into the European Economic Community in January 1973. This event, guided by the late Jack Lynch and Patrick Hillary, will go down in history as the day that Ireland finally broke free. While volumes of trade with Great Britain are now higher than ever, their proportion of our overall exports has never been lower. Just 9% in 2019. Belgium is now Ireland's second largest export market, with significant trade with Germany, China, and of course, top of the list is the United States, owing to our highly successful pharma industry. Joining the EEC, now the EU, opened up a new world of new possibilities for farmers, for manufacturers, and most recently in the area of services. We saw options other than Great Britain for our products. For For the first time since the Easter Rising and the War of Independence, we were, I believe, realising our true freedom. Another key milestone, and one which is still evolving, was the decision of the United Kingdom to leave the European Union. While joining the EU reduced our dependence on our nearest neighbours, they were and remain important trading partners. The Brexit vote in June 2016 will, I believe, further add to Ireland's economic independence. You only have to look at how the Irish haulage industry is now attempting to avoid the South of England land bridge by using the increased capacity of our direct ferries to continental Europe. Supply chains are being reorientated to reflect the fact that goods through Great Britain is now more of a hindrance than a help. Irish companies are looking for new suppliers and customers in the remaining EU 26 member states, as they know that the British market is just that bit more awkward. No one knows how Brexit will eventually look like. Things may return to the way they were, but I wouldn't put my money on it. Economic independence is what enables political and cultural independence to flourish. When you don't have to worry that what you say politically may offend your dominant export market, it ensures that small nations can speak truth to power when it comes to our work on the United Nations Security Council, for example. Commemorating the Easter Rising, the War of Independence, and yes, the Civil War are incredibly important, not only for our party, but our country as well. We should always look beyond the obvious and see that the work of gaining independence continued long after British soldiers left Dublin Castle. It continues to this day, and is something we should always reflect on. Arish go raibh ma an don cuire inniu, tá súla gom é seans a going tuck le chéile an bhliain se comhain. Beir bua agus go raibh míle maith agat.
Go raibh míle maith agat, Billy, and we appreciate the work you're doing for us in Europe. We're going to continue on with the evening. The next and final video of Reith Lane, Gerald, please.
The Irish Republic as a sovereign, independent state. God save Ireland!
As down the glen one Easter morn to a city fair rode I, there are mad lines of marching men in squadrons passed me by. No fife did hum nor battle drum did sound its dread tattoo, but the Angelus bells o'er the Liffey swell rang out through the foggy dew. Right proudly high over Dublin town they hung out the flag of war. 'Twas better to die 'neath an Irish sky than at Sulva or Sudalbar. And from the plains of royal Meath strong men came hurrying through, while Britannia's Huns with their long-range guns sailed in through the foggy.
Thanks again to all the participants in that video. We're going to progress now with a message from Jackie Keenan Finnan from Tipperary on the frontline workers of today.
Hi everyone, and thanks to Ryan and thanks to all in Ógra, Fianna, Fáil for asking me to say a few words. Little did we know a year ago that life as we know it would change so much. We've missed out on so many things, including our important and treasured commemorations for our patriot dead, our heroes who fought so hard for us, for Ireland, for Tipperary. We missed Salahead Beg, we missed Templemore 1916 commemoration, the Republican plot here in Tipperary town, Dan Breen Mass, Liam Lynch, Dualla, Sean Tracy, Lisnagowl, Dinny Lacey, the Garden of Remembrance, and these are just some that many of us here tonight would have attended. For that, it is great to see that this commemoration is going ahead virtually. Well done, Ógra. In commemorating all who fought for us, we should also remember the women of 1916. There's a great saying, behind every man, there's a great woman. And that's sometimes true. Actually, it's usually true. However, in 1916, there were many women who were behind no one. They were out there and they were in front and alongside these great, great men. One of our most well-known, of course, is our own founder member of Fianna Fáil, Constance Markievicz, who famously said, "Dress suitably in short skirts and strong boots. Leave your jewels in the bank and buy a revolver." As we all know, Fianna Fáil continues to have good, strong women, albeit not enough. I can't speak of our great heroes of the past without a mention for our incredible heroes of the present. All of those who work on the front line of this horrible pandemic every day. When any of us start to feel despondent, we should think of what these people do without a thought for themselves, putting us all first. And all the people we have lost to COVID or to something else during these strange times. The funerals we have missed and the times we were unable to properly pay our respects, even to some from our own commons who have sadly passed, and they will be dearly missed. May they rest in peace. I'll finish with a quick poem written by a man that we hold in so much esteem in our house that we gave our youngest son his name, Padraig Pearse, and it's simply called The Mother. I don't grudge them, Lord. I do not grudge my 2 strong sons that I have seen go out to break their strength and die. They and a few in bloody protest for a glorious thing. They shall be spoken of among their people. The generations shall remember them and call them blessed. But I will speak their names to my own heart. In the long nights, the little names that were familiar once around my dead hearth. Lord, thou art hard on mothers. We suffer in their coming and in their going. And though I grudge them not, I weary. Weary of the long sorrow, and yet I have my joy. My sons were faithful and they fought. Happy Easter, everyone.
Thanks, Jackie, for a wonderful message. It gives us plenty to think about on this Easter Sunday evening. Next, we're going to have a lighter moment. We're going to have a video of a song that is dear in many hearts in Tipperary, the Galtee Mountain By, and it's going to be sung in a very Republican house, Fergal Butler in Upper Church.
Joined the flying column in 1916 in Cork with Shawnee Mylan, Tipperary with Dan Breen. Arrested by Free Staters and sentenced for to die. Oh, farewell to Tipperary, said the Galtee Mountain By. Oh, we went across the valleys and over the hilltops green, where I met with Dinny Lacey, Sean Hogan and Dan Breen. Sean Myland and his gallant band, oh, they kept the flag flying high. Oh, farewell to Tipperary, said the Galtee Mountain By. Well, we trekked the Wicklow Mountains, we were outlaws on the run. Though hunted night and morning, we were outlaws but free men. We trekked the Dublin mountain as the sun was a-setting high. Oh, farewell to Tipperary, said the Galtee mountain by. Well, I bid farewell to old Clonmel, I never more will see. And to the Galtee mountains that oft times sheltered me, to those men who fought for liberty and died without a sigh, may their cause be ne'er forgotten, said the Galtee mountain by. May their cause be ne'er forgotten, said the Galtee mountain by. Sinead.
Thanks very much. Thanks to Fergal. What a wonderful rendition of the Galtee mountain by. Something to cheer us up on this evening. And a fabulous place too. If you haven't ever ventured up to Upper Church, if ever you're passing by, call into Canans, and that sign says Céad Míle Fáilte, they certainly mean it when they put it up over their door. I'm going to have a quick word, maybe just a little short word from Ryan. Would you be satisfied, Ryan, with your evening and how it went? And do you feel you're honoured to keep up that tradition that you have in Ógra and in Fianna Fáil for the last 100 years?
Absolutely, yeah. Thanks a million. And first of all, thank you, John, for your stewardship tonight and the way you kept things moving. It was great to have you on board. We really appreciate it. I guess like the point of this was just to commemorate. It wasn't to claim anything. It wasn't to say that one form of republicanism is better than another. It was just to say we're proud to be Republicans. We're proud to be Fianna Fáil Republicans, and we're proud of the impact that our party and our county has had on our country's long and proud history. Jack Lynch once said that no man can claim a higher brand of republicanism than any other woman or man. And I think that's what we aimed for here tonight. It was just to do something respectful and to commemorate and remember. And I'm delighted with it. I would like to particularly thank Dr. Mansergh for his speech here tonight, and all of the different topics that he touched on. And finally, just everyone that was involved in the organisation of this. It took quite a bit of work to get it up and going, and everyone that participated in all of the videos that were shown tonight. So thank you all very much for tuning in.
Thanks, Ryan. And indeed, there are many people to thank, but I'm not going to go through everybody. But our co-hosts this evening, PJ Ryan and Martina Ryan and Tim Maher, these people have been running events like this year after year and year after year. And as you say yourself, they're not looking for any thanks or any great recognition. They're just proud to be of the Fianna Fáil Republican Party and proud to continue this great tradition. And I actually feel humbled myself to be asked back. I was a member of Ógra for many years, and it's only when I leave it and move on years later that realise what an enjoyable organisation it was, and where they give the young people an opportunity to, air their views and maybe vent their anger at certain things that are not pleasing them in society, and maybe go about changing them, giving them an opportunity to change things. And that's what it's about. And we are open, and Ógra are open, and they want that message this evening. They're open for any young person to join. They're open to listen to people's views, and they're open to change and revitalise Fianna Fáil. And without those young people's views, it will be difficult to boost our figures in the polls. So we hope this evening was enjoyable. We thank everybody for coming and participating, and in particular, Dr. Martin Mansergh. And we're going to close with Ger Fogarty, who has been doing our videos so well and on time this evening, to close with the national anthem. Thanks again, Ger. God bless and stay safe.
Well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Night,
Bye.
everyone.
Hold on.